we have arrived at the Destin History and Fishing Museum. Let's see what it's talking about. Hello. Great, how about yourself?
Okay, where are you folks from?
We are from Texas.
Oh, okay. Lots of, if you're reading this, you're too close. That's good. Well, we do ask everybody if you would sanitize your hands right there. Okay, we would appreciate it. Thank you. So, you've been to Destin before?
Yes, I have.
Oh, well, you must have liked it to come back.
Oh, I love it. I grew up coming here during the summers with my family.
Well, nice.
Yep.
Are you a fisherman?
Yes, ma'am, I am. I've actually got a YouTube channel. So,
You do?
yes, ma'am.
Well, good for you.
Thank you. We're going to feature you guys on one of our videos.
Okay, well, you have to talk. I'm a volunteer. You'll have to talk to this lady here. She's
Oh,
your
hey,
friend.
how's it going?
I love that.
The
That's
map.
cute. That's cute, yeah.
Thank you, thank you. Do you want to show us around?
Well, let's see. I don't know.
I'm
You
gonna
already
get
got
your
your
money
Yeah.
yet?
No, not yet, not yet.
A bit of money. Are you in college or anything?
I am.
You are? Okay,
Yes, ma'am.
so you just be $3. You'll be $5, okay? Thank you, darling.
Now, unless you're military or a first responder job.
No, ma'am, I'm a mechanical engineer.
Okay.
Good for you. There you go, darling.
Thank you.
Well, I'll be happy to give you a little beginning tour to get you started, okay? And
Okay.
I'm going to start right over here by the door.
All right.
Our museum is a little 501c3 nonprofit run by a board of directors. And if you've ever worked or volunteered for a nonprofit, it usually translates to poor. So we rely heavily on our wonderful local support to do the things that we do. This Reef Ecosystem recreation was completely created by our local Bass Pro store. Bass Pro partnered with us, paid the labor of 3 of their employees for 2 weeks, donated all of the paint materials, and donated 10 of the fish mounts that are in there. It's kind of one of those things like the more you look, the more you see.
Mm-hmm.
Spot a bunch of little critters and walk off and come back and look again, and you'll probably spot something you didn't see before.
Awesome.
Now over here in our shark tank, we have a little baby bonnethead up there, bonnethead shark up there high
Caught
on the
one
wall.
of those before.
This big fella's an 8.5-foot hammerhead, and everyone is familiar with that hammer-shaped head. Their eyes are stationary on the end of the hammer, yet because of the way they swivel their body as they swim, they have 360-degree peripheral vision. Something you may be unaware of is their skin pigmentation is like a pig or a human, and they can tan. The longer they stay closer to the surface in clear waters, the browner they can become. The little shark on the wood pilings right here is actually a world record holder, and this is his certificate. He's a Florida smoothhound shark. A unique feature of the smoothhound shark, besides the fact that's as large as the species will ever grow, their teeth are not sharp, they're flat. They eat crustaceans like shrimp and crab, and they're actually the prey of the hammerhead. Now the shark jaw you see in the sand behind the baby silky shark is the jaw of a mako shark. If you look carefully at the shape of those teeth, and then come and look at this jaw. This is the jaw of a tiger shark. Tiger sharks are the only shark with serrated teeth. You can see and feel the serrated edges on the rounded curves. But an interesting thing, of course, about all sharks, if you look up in the gum line, sharks have 4 to 6 rows of teeth. They never lose all of their teeth. As they lose teeth due to eating, a whole nother row just rotates around. So over the course of their life, they'll have thousands of teeth. Now, we always like to point out these 2 photos. It's very difficult to judge the length of the shark because the 2 photos were taken at night. But this is the largest mako shark caught to date in the Gulf of Mexico. He was 1,063 pounds.
Oh, wow.
To give you a reference point, the man in the khaki pants is 6 foot. And you can see the shark's nose, the bottom of the tail where it's tied, but not the remainder of the tail. And they weren't shark fishing, they were cobia fishing, and they were on a small boat. Fortunately, a larger charter boat came alongside, helped them to get it up to the boat, and lashed to the outside where they could bring it in. Now, Destin is known for what I call certain ingredients that have helped us become the world-class resort we are today. We're a peninsula, so we have deep-sea fishing and back bay fishing. We have a sheltered harbor. Our harbor is home to the largest licensed charter and commercial fishing fleet, not only in Florida, but North America. Now, two of the ingredients, of course, the biggest draws, the sand and natural beauty, and the fishing. And we always like our locals as well as our visitors to understand the science behind those two, so I'm going to step right around the corner. Because of our location on the Gulf of Mexico, we have a lot of fishing tournaments here. Some of those tournaments are single species tournaments like cobia. Cobia are a migratory fish that go through Destin waters March, April, and May. They're an excellent food fish and a sought-after sport fish because they fight so ferociously. This fellow's the state record at 137 pounds. I believe the world record's about 151. Now, the most well-known fishing tournament here, of course, is the Destin Fishing Rodeo. And in a little bit, you'll have the opportunity to go in our rodeo gallery, the next room over, which is all things Destin Fishing Rodeo. And there's seating in there and 2 videos, great footage to give you a good idea of what that whole thing is about.
Okay.
The rodeo is a very unique fishing tournament for 4 reasons. One, its longevity. Began in 1948 and continues to this day. It's a 31-day event the entire month of October, and they're gearing up right now for the 72nd annual event. In fact, the rodeo booklets just came out yesterday, and you can get a free copy in the rodeo gallery. On that counter, you'll see them.
Okay.
It's also, besides a 31-day event, it's multi-species. There's over 100 categories and over 35 species of fish. The fourth aspect, you as an angler do not have to pay to enter the tournament.
Oh, wow.
Unless you want to enter your own private boat. If you come to Destin in October and you pay to go on a fair-carrying boat, if the boat is entered, and nearly every one of them enter, so is the angler. But it behooves them for you to catch a big fish because they accumulate points. So there's prizes not only for the angler, but the boat and captain. It's very prestigious to be named the rodeo captain of the year. So I'm going to slide right around here to the commercial fishing.
Here's for the kiddos.
You might say Destin has 3 kinds of fishing. There's fishing where you and I might take our own private boat and go out there and wet a line. There's fishing where you and I pay someone to take us fishing on a party or a charter boat. And then there's the fishing that gets the fish on the plate in the restaurant or in the seafood market where you can go get it, take it home, cook it yourself. That's commercial fishing. Destin began with commercial fishing in the 1800s. Excuse me. They utilized small open boats. They used a net called a beach seine net. These nets were very long, 3 times longer than this building, but only about chest high. So they had to stay close to the beach in shallow water. When they went in deep water for snapper and grouper, they had to use a hand line. That's a whole other level of difficulty. Now if we step forward in time, this little video is a tiny glimpse into one tiny aspect of local commercial fishing. This is a local commercial red snapper boat named the Alleluia, owned by local wholesale seafood market, Ariel Seafood. And it shows from catching the fish, bringing them back to the docks, and I have to take it aside because my favorite view is next. This is over at Dewey Destin's Harborside. Chef Jim Shower cooking it up, and the waitress taking it out to the table. But this boat, the Alleluia, is a commercial red snapper boat, and it is shows it from them catching the fish, bringing them back to the docks, unloading them from the dock, and transporting them from the dock over to their facility on Mountain Drive, packing them, shipping them all over the United States and Canada, as well as to our local restaurants. And then you saw in the end at one of our restaurants. Now, a lot of people have the misconception about red snapper. Red snapper, there's about 2 dozen snapper in the snapper family. The one that's the most sought after for its size, beauty, and taste is the red snapper. quite honestly, the other snapper and the snapper family are equally as good to eat, but that's the one that's so sought after, and that's the one that's federally regulated.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm going to slide right around here to about our sand. Our sand here is unique in the world. There's white sand all over the world, but there's none that has the geological history and properties of this beachfront. The bottom line is the sand here is 97–98% quartz. It is the properties of this mineral that makes our sand unique. The main property of quartz is its high reflectability. So the sand here is cool to the touch, even in the hottest part of summer, which is a good thing when you're barefoot. It also has to do with the color of the water. When the sunlight goes through the water and reflects off the quartz, it refracts through the bodies of the microorganisms, casting the color. Many of the advertising slogans for the area call it the Emerald Coast. Now this particular composite only exists about 170, 180 miles along the coast, and we're fortunate we're nestled here in the middle with no polluting bodies of water to alter that, and we're not out there on the outer fringe where the adjoining composites mix with it. Now where it came from, during the time of the glaciers and ice age, when the glaciers began to melt, it created a river that rose in what is now the Appalachian Mountains, and when it receded, it dumped this beachfront. So when you're walking on the sand here, you're actually walking on very ancient Appalachian Mountains.
History.
Now the very reason the fishing is so good is the very reason the beachcombing is so poor. All the shells in and on this cover were primarily picked up by divers off Destin. They're out there, you just can't get to them. There's a series of sheer drop-offs, and divers say at the base of those walls are treasure troves of shells. The shells you tend to find on our beaches are typically those that reproduce from that second sandbar to the beach, so it's more of the little stuff. But it's a trade-off. We'll take the finer sand and the better fishing. You go about 65 miles east or west of Destin, and when those walls go away and slope out, well then the shells can work their way up the slope. But they also begin to deteriorate and break up, and that starts changing the composition of the sand. You keep going east in Florida and you get to a place called Sanibel Island. Well, you can use a shovel to collect shells, but you can't walk barefoot because the shards will cut your feet. So we'll take the finer sand and the better fishing. Now I'm not going to go over our reef and beach and bay ecology exhibits. Hope you come back into this room and take a look at that. They are very instrumental in our fisheries. But I want to share with you a mural that will help explain about the fishing, and we're going to go around the corner into the fish wall room.
Oh, this is my room right here.
Yeah, there you go.
Come back and learn about the bay ecology and the beach ecology. Oh, here we go.
Now, every fish in here was caught here. It's by no means everything that's out there because everything in this museum has been donated. I got a whole list I'd love to have, but nobody stepped forward to give them to me yet. But they are the size they were when they were caught, so the species themselves can either be smaller or larger. Now, as an aside, there are two kinds of mounts. There are skin mounts and fiberglass mounts. In a skin mount, the skin is taken off of the animal, processed chemically, and either stuffed or stretched onto a form. Over there on the floor, that alligator is a skin mount. Over here behind you, up high on the shelf, that otter is a skin mount. Behind me, low to the left, the weird looking thing, the flying grenard, that is a skin mount. The problem is saltwater fish skin is extremely fragile, so it does not mount very well. We have some skin mounts, but we've typically got the few we have where nobody can touch them. Even the oil from your fingertips will make them just fall apart. So typically, saltwater fish are fiberglass mounted. Now, all of the mounts we have in this museum, except for 10 in the front room, are pre-1985. The technology before 1985 was totally different than it is today. So back in that time period when the fish was caught, it was photographed, measured, and a plaster cast made right on the body of the fish. Then that mold went to the taxidermist. The taxidermist poured the composite, and then the artist painted it. Today's technology is completely different, and probably within 5 to 10 years, even that will go the way of the dodo, and it will be all 3D printing until something else comes along. But mounts can be quite expensive. They can range up to hundreds of dollars an inch. So it's not a cheap endeavor no matter what way you do it. Now, in order to understand about the fishing in Destin, ignore the fish and look at the mural behind the fish. The beige is land, so there's Destin going east toward Panama City. The Destin Bridge, official name William T. Marler Bridge, goes across where that event is. And then going west across Okaloosa Island to Fort Walton, Navarre, Gulf Breeze, Pensacola. In the entire panhandle, Destin is the closest port to every depth of fishable water for all Gulf of Mexico species. That makes a big difference when you're paying to go fishing, so you're paying to fish and not boat ride. Now, open water is measured in a unit of measurement called a fathom, and a fathom is 6 feet. So this black string represents 1 fathom. All right, right out the mouth of the pass, there's a 50 fathom drop. Well, that's a 300-foot drop, and it'll go right by you. Only 44 miles off the pass is a very popular fishing spot called the 100 fathom curve. That's a 600-foot drop. Only 70 miles off of East Pass is DeSoto Canyon, 450 fathoms. That's 2,700 feet deep. To give you some perspective, that's like a 60 to a 270-story building going straight down. And on top of that, it just so happens the Gulf Stream swoops up the closest to the port of Destin. That rodeo fish, and the reason about that is that's why we get all the migratory fish. The rodeo fish bench exhibit right down there features in alphabetical order the main fish caught here for sport. There's scientific information and photos of anglers with that catch. Now I'm going to give you a little timeline, then I'll leave you alone and let you kind of wander around. Destin is named after a man named Leonard Destin. Leonard Destin, his brothers and father were whalers in the New London, Connecticut area. In the 1800s, it was typical for whalers in the off-season to go look for alternate fishing grounds, but the big money in the 1800s was salvaging wrecks off of Key West. So September of 1835, they were on their way. They never made it. They got about where Cape Canaveral is today, and they met up with a hurricane, and both of the schooners were sunk. Leonard's father and one of his brothers, their bodies were never even found. Leonard and another brother made it to the beach and were marooned for a couple of months until a passing schooner came close enough to give them transport to Key West. Leonard never went back home. He started fishing Gulf of Mexico waters, we feel like around 1837, 38, 39. We feel strongly he had a fish camp on this peninsula. The problem was, in that time period, there were no records really, and there was no people. The Indians were gone by this time, and there was no people, no roads, no bridges, no anything. But fishing was very good. A fish camp in those days consisted of a tent or a shack on the beach, and they would fish a few days, take their fish by schooner to Pensacola, where there was rail and shipping, then they'd come back and fish some more. But he built a permanent home for a wife on this peninsula around 1850, 1852. And it was that point the little village began to grow. They were poor dirt farmers and poor fishermen, and they were squatting on the property. They did not own it. The property actually was owned by the government at the time, and it was not released for sale until the Depression. And a lot of the families, some of them had been living on the properties for 100 years. But that's when it was released. But it was very desolate. No road or bridge to this peninsula until 1936. No electricity until 1938. No telephone until 1952. A lot of people are unaware. We've only been incorporated as a city since 1984. So we've grown a lot, but kind of historically in a very compact amount of time. I'm going to let you kind of roam around, and Carol and I will check in with you. So if you have a question, we'll be happy to try to answer it for you.
All right, thank you for tuning in to the Adventure Bro Show. Come and visit Mrs. Kathy at the Destin History and Fishing Museum. We'll see you on our next adventure.